All right. Well, thanks for coming back to the Bigfoot Society podcast. I have the privilege of having Sarah Cooper with me today from Maryland. And Sarah, why don't you go ahead and tell a little bit about yourself and why you're on the podcast today?
Okay, hi, I'm Sarah. So I am the founder of the American Snallygaster Museum here in Frederick County, Maryland. That is our state cryptid. We are curating a whole lot of stuff right now and in the process of building a tiny house on our property for the museum.
Oh, okay. Go ahead. Oh, my mind just went, okay. Yeah.
What?
Go ahead. I'm reeling myself in.
No, I don't
I'm
have much
excited.
else.
I'm excited.
I have a
Finish your
couple of things
intro.
I've
I need
created.
to,
That's kind
yeah.
of it. Yeah.
Oh man. Okay. This is gonna be really fun. Okay.
I'm
So
excited.
you are making the Snallygaster House Museum.
Hmm.
It's gonna be inside a tiny house.
Yes. So
Oh
we
man.
own a historic property here in Frederick County. It's actually in the Library of Congress. It's one of the last, it's from the Federalist period in the 1700s. We have one of the last
Oh,
original doors, all this shenanigans. So our house is
wow.
already museum-esque. Um, and on the back of our property, our project right now is we're building a tiny house. So it's not going to be, super huge. Like I don't know if you've been to the Mothman Museum or the Flatwoods Monster
Not
stuff. 'Cause
yet.
there's
Someday.
this, oh my God, it's
It's
incredible.
crazy.
Incredible. So we're starting small and we're making it kind of like a roadside attraction type of thing.
Awesome.
And hopefully, maybe it'll grow if people like it. We'll see.
So, like the people I've had talking to me so far are pumped that this is gonna be a thing. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of people from all over the different parts of the US that are like, "Are you serious? Like there's actually going to be a Snallygaster museum?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's totally happening. Like hopefully end of 2021, we'll
Yeah,
see
that's our
with all this
goal.
stuff going on." But
Yeah. I couldn't believe there wasn't already a
I couldn't
Snallygaster.
either.
We were really surprised. So
That is so smart to make it in a tiny house to start with. That's brilliant. For people that might not know what a tiny house is, can you uh like how big are we talking and kind of explain what that's
so
all about?
I have a really hard time with spatial relations.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of how to describe. It's like a small cabin size,
Okay.
kind of a one room kind of situation. Um, but I couldn't tell you like dimensions. Like I'm terrible with that kind of
Oh,
stuff. So
that's fine. Usually they can go on like a back of a trailer, like a small trailer, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
basically.
Oh man, that's crazy. I've got so many ideas off of that. Like, but it's meant to be in one area, but technically you
Yeah,
could go
technically,
traveling with it.
yes, and that would be absolutely incredible. I would love
Oh
that.
my goodness. You could have traveling Snallygaster
I know.
Museum at like places like Mothman Festival and stuff. How crazy would that
Exactly.
be?
We are big fans of Mothman Festival, Cryptid Con, all that kind of stuff. So
Oh
if we
my
were ever
goodness.
able to take it on the road, I would be just over the moon. It would be amazing.
This is like the smartest thing ever. For so it's weird because this is kind of like there's a lot of Snallygaster going on this month, as I made the joke for last week's episode. Um, that was also Snallygaster themed. But if there's listeners where they're not quite sure what the Snallygaster is all about, how are you? What's your elevator pitch to someone? Like, what is the Snallygaster all about?
Oh, okay. So I think for me, the Snallygaster is the first true American cryptid, even before Bigfoot and all of that.
Oh,
It is this dragon-like creature with bird features on the head that was
mm-hmm.
brought over with German immigrants, um, from the 1700s on. And there's, this big tall tail that just went on for so long that at one point, I believe it was Roosevelt was going to come and try to hunt the
Oh, that's
Snallygaster.
awesome.
And so there's a lot of very weird ties into like United States politics and
Mm.
fake news stuff and everything with this creature. So it's just, I think it's an interesting study in American history and folklore as well as bringing in my obsession with cryptids that, needs no explanation, I'm sure.
Well, I mean, no explanation, but tell me about it. So, has this been a thing where you have loved cryptids all your life, or how did you get into this kind of thing?
So let's see, being an unsupervised child in the
Mm-hmm.
90s,
Yep.
I spent way too much time watching Sightings and reading Weekly World News, and I got super into
Oh
UFOs,
yeah.
cryptids, Batboy, all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I never outgrew it. I guess some people outgrow that. It never happened for me. I just go down these rabbit holes. And then once I got the internet, it was like, that's
It's
it. That's all I wanted to
game
do.
on. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Good for you for not growing out of it, because there's a lot of people where it's like they love it as kids, and then they kind of like grow up, and then like something's some trigger switches when they're older adults, and they're like, oh yeah, cryptids, I'm back in. But
Yeah.
you never really left that, which is cool.
Yeah.
Would you say that that is your favorite cryptid then, is the Snallygaster, or
It is because it is our Maryland cryptid, but
mm.
I don't think I could pick a favorite. I spend so much time thinking about, different ones and discussing it with people that probably don't want to hear about it. But yeah, it's my favorite for now.
The best thing about the internet is like you can find those people that want to talk about it relatively quickly, or
Yes.
they will find you very quickly. And like
Yes. It's been wonderful.
the nice thing about the Snallygaster Museum is you have a really you have a fun Instagram account, and um I appreciate the you sent me some cool stickers in the mail. That was awesome. And
Yes. Oh,
postcards, that
yeah.
was really cool. Thank you.
Yeah, we're hoping to get more merch out. Those stickers were designed by Danner,
Mhm.
Conjure Dust Designs. Yeah,
Yep.
he's the coolest ever.
Oh,
Like
he is so
we're
nice.
fans over here, and we were really bummed because the stickers were originally supposed to go out in the Snallygaster cryptid crate, and because of
Oh
all the
yeah.
USPS COVID nonsense that happened around Christmas time,
Oh.
they didn't make it from Maryland to Delaware in time. So we were
Wow.
really, really bummed and disappointed.
Mm.
So we're working on something else, hopefully for a future one. But it was definitely another thing that COVID has kind of ruined for people. So we were a little bummed out, but it's okay because the stickers are awesome and we're just sending them out
They
to
are.
people
They're
now.
cool. Is there a lot of Snallygas? So I'm not like super. I'm getting more familiar with the Snallygaster because of interviews I've done recently. But is there like a? Is it pretty widespread in our pop culture, or is there some Snallygaster merch out there? Is it pretty much just the cryptid crate stuff so far?
No, there's a lot. So
Okay.
it's been a slow uptick of Snallygaster stuff because of
Okay.
Fallout 76.
Oh, totally.
Have
Yeah.
all those cryptids in there. Their
Yep.
Snallygasters are not in any way what it's supposed to look like, but it's just that the name exists and that it's being mentioned is pretty cool. But there's
Okay.
so much Snallygaster merch. Like I was blown away. The
That's
first piece
awesome.
I got was at Cryptid Con. I can't remember the artist, but I know she's on Etsy. I feel maybe it's on the back of this. I don't know, but she
Ooh.
made this amazing print
Oh, I
here.
know that. I've seen that one. I've seen that series. Like that's so cool that
Yeah,
you
she has a
actually
whole
saw her.
beautiful. I just can't remember her name, so I'm kind of it's not on here. But this is the first one I ever got, and that was what started my oh my god,
Oh
there's a
man.
Maryland cryptid kind of obsession.
Okay. Wow. That is
Yeah,
cool.
that's our first official piece.
Oh, for the museum.
Yeah, that was my first thing where I was like, oh, I'm gonna
Oh
start
yeah, nice,
collecting
nice,
this
nice.
stuff.
So what pushed you over the edge from just being into, or let's say like Snallygaster like is awesome, to hey, let's make a museum about it.
So I am an emergency room nurse, and
Okay.
I was 28 weeks pregnant when
Mm.
the pandemic started in March.
Oh wow.
And I worked this pandemic through the spring with one surgical mask a week. So the stress and
Mm.
the anxiety of that was just really like a lot. And then, having a baby during this and coming back, it was just
Yeah.
a lot. And so we were all kind of talking to the family about like we have to have some kind of outlet or something we can be working towards because we're all bummed
Mm-hmm.
out. My older
Yep.
son was doing school from home. We weren't leaving our house at all. It was just a constant state of anxiety. And we were like, we got to put this manic, crazy energy into something. And this kind of just popped up while we were talking at dinner one night. And we ran with it basically.
So you know how weird this is because if we didn't have the pandemic, no one would be talking right now because that's the reason that I started this podcast. I'm not even
Really?
kidding. Because I was so bored and I was like, well, I had kind of started it the year before and then I let it kind of go away. And I was like, you know what? I've got all this time. Like, let's go for it 100% and like, let's rock it. And yeah, totally like because I was so bored during the pandemic. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
so positive things have come out of it, like stuff like that. That's awesome. We all
Yeah,
had something to get through this because it's not been easy.
it has not. And um, so this is interesting because um, well, I also want to thank you for being I'm sure you've done like just the things that you've done through this so far. I don't know you personally, but thank you for like
Oh, like
just
excites me to say.
kicking butt at what you're doing. Like I know that's I'm just gonna leave it at that. But I mean, we've all been affected, and thank you so much. Um, my question is, so I had actually the episode next week after this one is with Andrew
Mhm.
from the Flatwoods Museum.
Oh
So
my
it's going to
gosh,
be pretty
love that.
cool because so this episode is going to air, and this is building a museum, and then
Hmm.
it's going to be Andrew talking about his time after building the museum and what's happened. So I think that's going to be kind of a
Oh
cool thing for
my gosh, I'm
listeners to
excited to
hear.
hear what he has to say.
It's a really good episode. You're going to love it. How for people that have maybe they're thinking like, oh, this actually is a cool idea. Maybe I could make a museum about my local, regional, state cryptid or something that doesn't exist. Like, what have you had to go through so far to get this to work?
We were really lucky because there's so much available about the Snallygaster. It was really easy to find newspaper articles about it, which is another thing that makes this cryptid
Mm,
interesting is that there were so many articles of people in legitimate stories, people saying they saw it and all of these things. Um, so I think just having the time to dedicate to research and really look into it is the big thing. And
okay,
I feel like a lot of the cryptids are already taken, unfortunately. Like in a lot of states, it's
that's
hard to
true.
have just your specific state. So I think it would be, I don't know, because I haven't really considered how that must be for people in other places. I think it would be difficult depending on where you're located. I mean, like, say you're in Ohio, like if
Mm-hmm.
you were trying to do a Loveland Frogman Museum, I think that
Oh
it would
yeah.
be really difficult to find a lot of stuff on it.
Mm.
Um, so we're trying to figure out now because there is so much pop culture Snallygaster stuff and so much art that's really helping fill up some of
Yeah.
the exhibits. But yeah, I guess that would be quite difficult in certain places.
Talking about actually, and you can get as deep into this as you want, or you can just gloss over it. I'll leave this up to you. Um, the setting up the museum itself, like, is it a thing where it's like you can just be like, okay, I'm gonna have something on, or is there like an actual process to be like, okay, I'm gonna set up a museum. I have to do this step one, step two, step three. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, so I mean,
Yeah.
step one has been a huge amount of research and trying to get newspaper articles and put together some stuff that is a little bit with regard to the Snallygaster is a little bit uncomfortable because there are some racial undertones to
Oh
it
yeah, sure.
that need to be
Hmm.
addressed because it was a creature that at one point was used by slave owners to scare
Mm.
enslaved people out of escaping.
Oh wow.
And we can't ignore that part of it. And it needs to,
Mm.
that kind of stuff really needs to be
Okay.
addressed in a sensitive way. And we're trying
Sure.
to discuss it with a large variety of people about how is the best way. For example, there are some newspaper articles that have language in them that are
Mm.
that's very offensive. So,
Oh,
what's the
totally.
way
Yeah.
to display it? Well, because we don't want to deny that these things happen and that this was part of its history. So, like, going through the research and making sure that we're sensitive and aware of how we're presenting this stuff to people has been
Wow.
our number one thing. And then step two, which I'm kind of combining these two steps, is just collecting stuff regarding the Snallygaster and figuring out how we're going to display it.
Okay. So that's interesting. So it's definitely going to be a line blurred between history museum and roadside attraction when you
Mhm.
bring that part into it with the history that's associated with it. There wasn't a there's not like okay, you want to run a museum, here's your permit, you fill out. There's no like crazy stuff like that, or
So we're lucky because we live in a really bizarre area. So
okay.
we're in rural Frederick County, and we're in a historic property in an unincorporated town.
Oh,
So
okay.
we have a lot more freedom than people who are in, regular neighborhoods, as far as like, as long as it's
Oh,
under a certain size on our property, we don't have to do
oh,
any
I get
additional
it.
permit or
Okay,
anything, which was
that's
another thing
awesome.
that made it a little bit easier to move forward with it, because that would have been a complete
Yeah,
nightmare.
yeah.
So because we're keeping it under a certain size, we're able to skip past some of the red tape. I don't
Right.
know with COVID and everything how we're going to handle that with visitors. Like if we're going to have to do it by appointment only or something like that to make sure everyone's kept safe, because it is such a small space.
True, true. Good thing is you do have a bit more time to figure that out, it sounds
Yeah,
like,
thank
which is
goodness.
good. Yeah. Um, let's see. Who would you say that this museum is for? Who do you want this to be for?
Hmm. I mean, I feel like I would like it to be for people like me, like my family, who, I don't know if you look at like Atlas Obscura, whenever we
Yeah.
travel, we always pick out the weird roadside attraction stuff. People like that are just trying to find something really weird and interesting and quirky about a place that they're going through, and
Hmm.
also for Maryland natives as a whole, because this is our cryptid. Some people say it's Virginia's cryptid, and they are wrong. Um, so this is our cryptid. So definitely, like, this is all Maryland.
Nice.
Um, that type of thing. And then if we ever did take it on the road, I would love if the whole cryptid community could, be a part of it, like Cryptid Con and all that, like we were talking.
Totally. Yeah. Um, so I haven't gotten a chance to go to any of the festivals except for the Van Meter Visitor
Oh
Festival.
my gosh.
Audience, there it is. There's the weekly reference for all the bingo players. So, but I can only imagine being at a festival and the cool factor of like, oh hey, the museum for this cryptid is actually here. Let's go check it out. Like that would be so cool. So I think that's an amazing idea.
I mean, I'm hoping we've driven to Mothman, and we've driven to Cryptid Con because it was in Kentucky, so
Oh
it's
yeah.
not a terrible drive. So I know it's doable. It's just the logistics of setting all that up and everything.
Yeah, that's true. That it's not as easy as just setting up a table and some chairs. I mean,
I mean, we'd be happy to do that too, of course, because most of
right,
the stuff
right.
is around.
Yeah. What has been as you've been looking more and more into the Snallygaster, do you have like a favorite resource or a book that you've relied on or anything that you can recommend for the listeners?
I mean, truly with this, it's been all internet research. I've been
Yeah.
so lucky that there is so much available, like scans of these articles and everything, that I can't, I know there are a few books on the topic, but I've been able to do all of this through just, pulling up old newspaper articles and reading general folklore stuff online about it.
Mm.
I know that I recommended a couple books that I saw about it in your Instagram thing, but I could not for the life of me remember what they are right now, because, like I told you, I'm coming off of 3 shifts in a row, so I'm a little
And that
brain
is
foggy.
like that is no problem.
Brain
I would
foggy.
be not even able to talk. Um so we know Snallygaster, you said, has been referenced in Fallout 76. Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't have time to play video games yet. But also, has it been referenced? Have you seen it come up in any movies or anything?
Oh, yes. So there is a movie called The Snallygaster Tale. It was like
Hmm.
an indie movie. It won a few awards actually several years ago, maybe early 2000s. And that one is more exploring this kind of Depression era family and the dad using the Snallygaster as folklore to kind of deal with the things they're dealing with the depression, the death of their mother, like a bunch of things. And we were really, really lucky that the director of that movie is still around and willing to talk to us. So we got to talk to him a little bit about it. It wasn't as folklore heavy. It wasn't about Snally necessarily, but it was really cool that it was such a big part of this movie and the themes from it. So we're actually going to have an original poster from that movie on display.
Oh,
So we're
cool.
very excited for that.
Nice. That's awesome. I have so this is the first time that this has ever happened, but I have two people from the Patreon asking the same question.
Okay.
That's pretty wild. So get ready. Pretty much the summary of the question is, could there be plans for a Snallygaster Festival in the future? I guess add on, is there already one?
There's a Snallygaster Beer Festival. That's just the name of it
Oh,
is Snallygaster, and it's a DC beer festival,
okay.
which we would if that ever comes back after COVID, we'd love to have stuff there. I
Totally.
would be so thrilled to have a Snallygaster Festival in Maryland. There's
Mm,
so much cool stuff here, especially in Frederick County. Like we're surrounded by all these incredible vineyards with this great space to host things like that. So if it ever became a possibility, we would be so down for something like that.
yeah, totally. That would be so cool. I was actually kind of linking into that. I had this thought the other day and I was like, so you know how like you're in certain areas and it's like the wine highway or like yeah, different highways, right? What
Mm-hmm.
if there was a cryptid highway? So hear
Oh,
this out. Because
amazing.
well, I don't know your exact area, but I put in like what I knew about where you are. And I was like, what if you did this over to, you could do like Mothman Museum, you could do Flatwoods, you could also kind of throw in, Chestnut Ridge area because
Mhm.
it's kind of all and like make a fun like I think it would be maybe 7 8 hours total, but like totally make like a multiple day out of it.
Oh my gosh, you could start in the Pine Barrens in Jersey for Jersey
Oh
Devil
yeah,
stuff,
totally.
make your way down through, Maryland, and then you could get West Virginia toward Kentucky, and then you've got Kelly Hopkinsville stuff over there. I mean,
Yep.
it would be cool.
Oh
I would
man,
absolutely down.
that would
That'd
be
be
cool.
great.
That would be fantastic.
That was how we
Um,
did. We didn't start in Jersey, but that's how we did our road trip down to CryptidCon a few years ago. As we
oh
stopped at
really?
Flatwoods, Mothman, and then down there. And I have an unhealthy obsession with Ingrid Cold, like beyond. So I had to go to the
Really?
exact intersection where the Woody Derenberger Ingrid Cold
Oh
encounter
jeez.
happened and geek out and just act like a maniac. So I was so excited. We actually the baby that was born during COVID, his middle name is Indrid, and he is the first human being to ever be named that. So we were pretty
No
excited.
way. For
Yeah,
real?
yeah,
I guess you have a way of checking though. Like you probably know how to check.
yeah. We were googling like it's never been used as a name for anyone, so we were like,
That is
oh,
so cool.
I'm excited.
Good for you. Um, so tell me more about that. That's kind of interesting. Like, what is the obsession about that?
So I used to be really, really scared of him. I remember, I don't
Hmm.
know what, unsupervised television show I saw Mothman and stuff on and when I was a child in the 90s and then Ingrid Cold stuff. And I was so scared of him. I was so scared when I turned 16 and I was driving. I was scared that I was going to stop at an intersection. He was going to come up to my window and communicate
Oh
with me
man.
telepathically and all this stuff. And it just became this like little thing in my brain forever. And as I got older, I actually read the book written by Woody Derenberger, and I listened to an interview. And then when we had the opportunity to go to Mothman, I got way, way, way more into it. And it's just such a cool idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a hard, I'm not super gullible or anything, but I have a hard time believing that someone would make up this much of a story that would go on for this long. So,
Yeah.
I like to believe that this is a real being somewhere, whether he's a, elemental or an alien or a cryptid, whatever he
Mm.
is. I just think it's really a fascinating idea. And I don't know if you've read any of his stuff about Lanulose and how things work on that planet and all that
I'll
kind
be
of.
honest, no, I haven't. This is all just hey, let's party and talk about it. Like,
So
yeah.
it's very interesting. He's from a very peaceful, kind of different reality than we are in.
Okay. Hmm. Interesting. Um, when you went to the Mothman Festival, was there anyone like cosplaying as the
There were
character?
some
And
Men in Black people,
yeah,
and
I've
sometimes
seen those.
people mix Ingrid Cold up with Men in Black, but it's a totally different thing as far as I'm concerned. So I was a little bummed I did not see any of that, but I'm hoping maybe one of these years someone will play as him. I don't really know how you would do it because it's kind of hard to differentiate him from anyone else.
Unless you had a name tag where it's like Mr. I mean,
Yeah,
like you'd have to
exactly.
make it really obvious and like, ooh, but uh,
Exactly. I mean, I would freak out and be into it, and I would probably pick up on any little subtle things, but I don't think that the average person spends this much time thinking about him. So
that's
I
awesome.
don't.
Oh man. What is looking forward? Let's say you're able to look 5 years down the road, at least five
Mhm.
years. What do you want the museum? Where do you want the museum to be, or what do you want to have been accomplished? What are your goals for it?
Um, I mean, I'm really hoping if it does really get more popular, I would hope to have a space similar to what Mothman and Flatwoods have kind of in our downtown area, so that it's more, foot traffic and easier to get to because our house is a little bit out there. I think that would be incredible. I'm hoping there'll be, so there's an interesting thing where I think there's a 25-year life cycle of Snallygaster sightings. And we would be coming up on one in a couple of years here. So if
Really? Oh,
that would just be the best thing ever. There's this whole thing about like the cycle of the eggs hatching, and that Snallygasters is actually more than one. It's like a family of them that live out in the mountains. So we'll see. It'd be really cool.
do you have the exact sorry, this is totally putting on you on the spot, but
I
so
think
you're saying
I don't
it's in a
have it.
few years?
No, it's on my computer, which is in another room. Like I had
No problem,
research
no
where I had
problem.
all the. I actually will post it on my Instagram tonight about the cycles, the hatching
Perfect.
cycles, how they've all coincided with sightings and everything. But yeah, I can't remember if it's like 20 or 25-year cycles, but I know that in the next 2 years we're coming up on another one. So it would be really cool if there were more Snally sightings.
So that actually leads into an interesting question. So when was like what are the most recent uh sightings like,
So the most recent ones that there's news coverage of, I think were in the 60s or 70s.
wow.
And it kind of stopped. I mean, media has changed, obviously, a great
Sure.
deal. But I haven't seen anything that I could find any news coverage of since then. I have had a few people tell me they saw a pterodactyl. I
Mm,
mean, and like someone who didn't know anything about the Snallygasters, like you never would believe this. Like it was a coworker a while ago. They said, "I swear to God, I saw a pterodactyl flying in the sky
wow.
with everything," and I'm like, Snallygaster! Like I was so excited, but
Oh man.
uh, yeah, there's not much coverage after that, so I'm a little bummed about it.
Have you heard the theory where it's like this could be the same thing but just called different things in different regions of the
I've heard
US? Have you
the
heard that?
Jersey Devil thing a lot, that they're very similar.
Yeah. What do you think that that might be a possibility, or do you think it's totally a different thing by itself?
Oh, it's absolutely a possibility.
Hmm.
I mean, I think that would be super cool, or if it was a different variation of the same kind of creature, something like that.
Gotcha. Yeah. People say that there could be connection to Mothman. Some have you heard that?
Yeah, so I should have prepared better for this because I have all this research, but
You're absolutely fine.
kind of a theory about a lot of things in certain areas of West Virginia and how it opened up this rift between dimensions.
Oh, really?
That at the time when this happened, it was like late 1800s, where there was like some conflict between Native Americans and colonizers.
Okay.
And there's a whole theory that there was this rift opened up by this conflict that happened basically. And that was the time that cryptids that are less based on real creatures started to make their way into folklore and society, because prior to that,
Oh,
the
cool.
cryptids were all based and had more form that was really similar to an animal you might otherwise see. But then you started to get these really weird chimeras and things that didn't really fit in to the natural order of things. So I kind of like the idea that somewhere in the, Appalachia and the mountains in West Virginia, there's
Yeah.
this rift in dimensions that these creatures are coming out of.
I love that. It's
That's
like
really cool.
Half-Life 2 if
Yeah.
oh my goodness,
I
that's a
love
really cool
that.
idea.
My whole thing on why we can't find or look at Bigfoot is that he is an interdimensional being, and he can just slip through this fabric and he's gone. And that's why he's not really here, but he's not really there, kind of thing. So I think that kind of fits with a lot of cryptids. They're not.
That is, yeah, one of the theories, definitely.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's oh man, it is interesting, isn't it? It's like
it's super
you
interesting.
have on one side, you're like, is this guy like slipping around through, window areas, or is it actual like great ape or an undiscovered ape in North America or there's so many different theories. And the cool thing about this podcast is like I have my belief, but like I have all sorts of people on it. It doesn't like I'm cool with it, because adults know how to talk to other adults, even when they don't agree with them, right? Like,
Yeah, we've lost that ability as a
yeah,
society, unfortunately.
culture
A
needs to
little bit
get
of a
that
bummer.
back. Totally. What would have you thought about like what you want the museum to look like when you walk into it, like how you want the exhibit set up or anything where you're like, oh, it'd be really cool like one day to have this kind of exhibit in there, or like kind of dreaming.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of ideas. I think I would probably kind of want to do it chronologically, starting with the
Mhm.
stuff in the 1700s and starting with some Native American folklore and some paintings and stuff that look very
Mhm.
similar and have similar descriptions to this creature, and then move through the very unfortunate part and the connection with slavery in
Right.
the United States. And then it goes into a little bit more unfortunate stuff. So in the early 1900s, there's one reported victim of the Snallygaster
Hmm.
from Western Maryland. This person had their blood drained and they were found
Wow.
like thrown off a cliff. So
Hmm.
unfortunately, that is a person of color. It was the only black man in this town. And
Oh.
my feeling on it is that there may have been more to it. It could have been a lynching that got turned
Yeah.
into this. And it's something that if I ever got funding, with this museum, that I would really like to reopen that case and look into it. So
Wow.
there's a big period of Snallygaster history that is upsetting and unfortunate, but important to tell. And then we
Mhm.
can move past that. And then there's the sightings, and then there's the whole Dewey thing that comes into it, which is like the
Oh, yeah.
Snallygaster enemy wolfman creature. So we're having a little bit of Dewey stuff once we get into like the 20s and 30s, because that's
Which
when he
is
came up.
um that's going to be around Great Prohibition era, right?
Yes, so there's a lot of prohibition Snallygaster stuff too,
Okay.
about like falling asleep on people's stills and getting drunk and all kinds of weird, you
Really?
know,
Like
yeah,
Snallygasters going after moonshine and drinking it?
yeah, he's a
That's
drinker.
crazy.
So I think that's pretty cool that he was, he's just so, I say he, I don't know why, but it's just so entwined in American history, and there's so many weird things where it pops up. It's kind of a cool
Man, that
creature.
is
But once we
cool.
hit the 60s and 70s, and there really aren't a lot of sightings after that, I'm hoping to have a very large part of it dedicated to just Snallygaster art. I've
Mm.
messaged a lot of artists on Instagram to try to, buy prints. I'd really like signed prints and have their
Oh
business
yeah.
card and have, a whole section of that available as well. Because I think the Snallygaster art that's out there is just amazing.
There's some really cool stuff from what I've found just looking around in preparation for these few interviews. Have you found that there's different interpretations of this cryptid, or that um is because there's tentacles, right? Usually,
Mm-hmm.
is that something where it's like baked into the legend, or is it more of like an artist interpretation? What do you think?
It's really weird because there's only a couple references to the tentacles that I could
Okay.
find, historical stuff. Some people think it was just eating an octopus. Some people
Hmm.
think it has tentacles that it can shoot out of its mouth.
Oh
So
wow.
I don't really know exactly where the tentacle thing started. I think it makes for some really, really cool art. And the
Yeah,
logo
it
that
does.
we're working on with Danner includes the tentacles just because I really think they're super cool. But I don't
Nice.
know that it's necessarily a big part of it, like from the beginning. I don't remember there being any tentacle stuff there.
Hmm. That is super crazy. The one thing I like about small regional cryptids is sometimes how they affect the town. And so Andrew goes into this a little bit about Flatwoods Monster, but is there, let's say your area where the Snallygaster is really big, is there anything where it's like you can get like the Snallygaster burger or anything like that? Has not really?
There's an ice cream place. I posted it on my Insta too, and I can't remember. It was Mountain Hills Creamery or something that had a Snallygaster flavor
Oh,
that I
nice.
posted. And then there's the beer festival. There's some rum or whiskey or something a while back that was
Hmm.
Snallygaster themed. And that's another thing actually in the 5-year plan is that I'd really like it if we could get some Snallygaster stuff in Frederick restaurants, little specials or something like that.
Oh, totally.
I think it
Yeah.
would be super cool.
Oh, that's cool.
So I would really love that if restaurants ever open again. It'd be really cool.
Well, it's a slow process, right? I guess.
It really is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fingers crossed. Man, that is cool. It's definitely on the list. I so we're in the Des Moines area, and it's like we've got a whole list of stuff we have to hit because we haven't hit any of the stuff out east, like and definitely the Snallygaster Museum is on the list now. So excited to see that in the future. Has there been anything about the museum that we haven't touched on yet that you really want to make sure is out
Hmm.
there?
I don't know. I can't think
Awesome.
of anything now.
Awesome. All right. Well, this has been really fun. I think that it would be fun maybe in a few years to do like a follow-up interview just to kind of see where we have or where you guys have landed. Um, and I expect really big things from you as well. Do you mind taking a few minutes and as we kind of wind down the interview already? It's crazy, it gone that fast. But can you share with the listeners like how they can follow along the process of setting up the museum?
Oh yeah, so we have a TikTok. I can't remember what it's called right now. Hold on, let me
I
see if I
think
can.
it's
I
is
can't
it
remember.
at is it at Snally House?
I think it is. Yeah, a lot of my
Yeah, yeah,
stuff is
yeah.
at Snally House. We
Mhm.
have a TikTok. We have our Instagram, which is American Snallygaster Museum. We also have a Facebook that I don't know if people are even on Facebook anymore, but we have a Facebook page for it. I have an Etsy store, but I haven't posted a whole lot of stuff yet. But as we're making merch, we're going to start selling stuff on the Etsy store, like Snally T-shirts and things like that, to help raise money for the museum. So yeah, I think everything is at Snally House or Snallygaster Museum. It should be pretty easy to find.
Awesome. That is really cool. And you did Sarah has agreed to hang on a few extra minutes. She's got some stories to share and then um yeah, we will be good. Listeners, sorry, we are both extremely tired. I'm not as tired as Sarah because she has
Okay.
earned the tired. I've just not been going to sleep. So apologies, listeners. But we'll see you back next week. If the stars keep aligning as they are, I believe that will be our Ape Canyon episode. So you'll have to definitely be psyched about that. But we'll see. Thanks again, Sarah, for coming on.
It's been awesome. I hope I get to come on again,
Totally
more
awesome.
prepared, hopefully with better sleep.
All right. Have a good one, guys.